Judy is a researcher, instructor of sustainable strategy at the School of Business at Sonoma State, director of the Bioregional Development for Sustainable North Bay, and she leads the North Bay Forward Initiative and has been a leader for a number of years, and so I've asked her to moderate the group. Go ahead, Judy. Thank you.
Thank you. So this morning our panel is going to work a little bit differently. None of us have slides. I'm going to do a very short introduction for each of our speakers and then start off with the questioning. There will be time at the end for you to ask questions, so be thinking about that throughout the time that we're talking. So good morning. Very honored to have these three business leaders here. The three people up on the stage each bring about 30 years of experience in their respective fields of manufacturing, agricultural, and services. And these people were all integrating the ideas of sustainability, resiliency, regeneration into their business practices long before many of us had ever even heard the words. So I'm excited today to hear more from them. I'm going to start off with Cyane, Dandridge at the end. She is the founder and executive director of Strategic Energy Innovation and the director of the School of Environmental Leadership at Terra Linda High School. Cyane really understands the systemic reasons that communities lack access to green technologies and has been very successful in bringing together various stakeholders, the students, the residents, government officials, and workforce in the design of really building sustainability programs. And Cyane, I'm hoping that you can tell us a little bit more about how you as a service provider really drive sustainability both internally and then through the clients that you serve.
Sure. Is this on? Yeah. Okay, great. So thank you so much. Thanks for letting me come and speak to all of you. So as a service provider, our core resource is people. That's what we have to offer. That's what we sell, basically, is our brains, is our the people that we work with. And so one of the core critical parts of being a sustainable business with that kind of model is to make sure that your people thrive. So that's a big part of what we do just internally, my organization. So we are a Marin County Green business, but really what we try to do is look at how can we support our staff in ways that helps them to feel passionate and able to provide the kind of services that they can really do their best and work hardest with. Not only that, a lot of the services that we provide, we focus around sustainability but our primary work that we do is around career technical education. So we really try to help with people having them go through different career pathways so that you as businesses can have these individuals that are well-trained, well-supported, and have leadership skills that they can be able to provide you with services within your organizations. So we do, I mean, like our programs just through that career technical education. So we have a Climate Corps Fellowship program. We do a lot in education. We worked with 250 high schools last year, 30,000 students, all around sustainability education. Saved 14 million kilowatt hours, over 2 million gallons of water, $2.5 million in energy savings with the businesses that we worked in. So in part, one of the things that I would challenge you to do is look at how can you bring in people that are going through career pathways into these green careers, bring them into your businesses, bring them in as fellows, as interns, and they can help to regenerate your businesses. And that's a lot of what we try to do is how can we help other businesses also be supported and do a lot in sustainability and climate protection.
Okay, thank you. And then to my right, we have Jim Happ. And Jim is the CEO of Labcon. He's a leader in engineering eco-efficient operations and environmentally friendly products. And he's led Labcon to a number of patents and partnerships with companies who also embrace sustainability. They produce 30% of their own power while manufacturing 6 million pieces per day. 35% of which are exported to 57 different countries. And Jim, you've had your struggles over the years of actually integrating when you're really talking about manufacturing. And can you tell us a little bit about what some of your biggest challenges have been and how you've overcome them?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. First to say Labcon is in Petaluma, so I'm not really a Marin County guy anymore, but the company was founded in Sausalito. in 1959, believe it or not, and we lived in San Rafael for 40 years, so we didn't move to Sonoma County until 2004. Just like in all of our personal lives, it's pretty easy to measure what you consume, and if you make an effort, you can consume less. So we've done all those things. We trademarked Mr. Friendly, Earth Friendly in 1994, so we've been working on this for a long time. The hard part for me, you can consume less, you can do the right things, you can put solar panels in, but we're a plastics manufacturer, and all plastics are oil-based, realistically. So the hard thing is to come up with products that are plant-based products. So both of these things in my hand are made from plants. One's made from corn. It's got a whole story behind it about, we had this on the market for about 10 years, and the company that made it failed, so we couldn't offer it anymore. And the new thing we came out with is biopolyethylene. It's made from sugarcane and sawgrass in Brazil. So that is the big challenge for us, is trying to source things that make sense environmentally. We can do everything right as far as energy consumption, but finding materials that are the right materials to make this planet a better place is hard to do.
Okay, thank you, John. And finally, we welcome John Roulac, founder and former CEO of Nutiva, and now founder and CEO of RE Botanicals, who's here to share his wealth of experience in regenerative agriculture or in organic agriculture. And over the past 20 years, he's been a real advocate for healthy people and ecosystems. In that process, he's also sourced and formulated close to $1 billion worth of retail sales in organic superfoods. And John, I'm hoping that you can talk to us a little bit about, especially with this new venture, what are some of the initial steps that companies can take to really integrate sustainability practices into their businesses? And then once they've reached sustainability, what are the kind of the aspirational goals beyond?
Great, thanks. Good to be here. I'm part of the Pioneers Network, and we were just in this ballroom this last weekend. So, Marin's has a long time leadership in environmental issues, and I know it's been very strong in the energy sector, and has been. I'm going to talk a little maybe about what we can do here in the communities around food. That I think there's some gaps there that need to be addressed, especially in regards to drawdown. So a little background: I started Nutiva in Sebastopol with 500 hemp bars back in 1999. Today we're based in Richmond, just across the bridge in Richmond, California, and we're a 140,000 square foot facility. One of the things we've done there, we package, warehouse, and have offices. We're a zero waste facility, so that's one of our strong environmental programs that we've done. We take some of the leftover materials like chia seeds or hemp seeds that may get on the factory floor that we can't use, and we actually provide those to local farms to feed animals or to making compost. One thing to understand is the largest contributor of greenhouse gas emissions in the world today is not Chevron or Exxon or the transportation industry. It's actually agriculture, and that's not well known, and is ironically is de-emphasized by the environmental community and climate movement in the world today, and that's really to our detriment. And it doesn't make a lot of rational sense, but it is what's going on. And I wrote an article to the leading environmental groups about 4 years ago. It's like, why are we putting 99% of your time and and as a society on reducing emissions when we know that when you just use a carbon calculator that the future of the planet will be determined on how much we sequester carbon. Emissions are obviously important, So, but some of those steps in terms of businesses obviously is transportation. But if you're in, but we all eat 3 times a day. We vote with our dollars there, and what we do there. Like for example, here in Marin, how many of you buy coffee from Starbucks? So probably there'll be a lot more. You don't want to raise your hand. So how many of you know that Starbucks is one of the leading contributors to climate change and a major destroyer of the oceans? Yeah. The reason being is like some of you are like, well, why would they be that? It doesn't have, actually, the plastic cups is part of that, but the number one reason is they're one of the largest purchasers of industrial milk that's grown like from cows fed Monsanto grains, Roundup, major greenhouse gas emissions. And Starbucks sells more milk than they do really coffee per pound. So that's just an example. We need to shift over to more regenerative, whether it's organic, milk that's raised in a more productive way, or going to, plant-based dairies that will replace that. So those are some things. The other thing that I think, that Marin could be doing more is, and I kind of lament this. I'm spending time now in Boulder. My new company, RE Botanicals, is an organic hemp apothecary. That in Boulder, there's more organic and better choices than there are in Marin County for restaurants. It's kind of ironic. And most restaurants in Marin County are serving industrial meat from CAFO meat. And we could be moving that to regeneratively raised. And that's a whole other discussion, but actually regeneratively, where the cows are rotated, is a much lower carbon footprint. So those are some of the things personally we can be doing. But I think in terms of what businesses can do, implementing more programs, zero waste, obviously recycling, green energy programs, and then encouraging people to eat a more regenerative organic diet.
Okay, thank you. Before we open it up to questions on the floor, I'm hoping that each of you can briefly describe how you see the ideas of sustainability evolving over the next 10 years, and what kinds of cooperations you see as being really helpful we heard the whole public sector panel saying we need more businesses. So what are those things that the public sector can be doing to actually help bring about a more regenerative, sustainable economy? Who would like to talk first? Cyane, you look like you want to talk.
Sure. So I think, honestly, obviously we do a lot of work around education. We do a lot of work trying to help people of all ages to understand what these issues are. I strongly feel that looking forward, we really have absolutely no idea what challenges we're going to be facing. They're going to be extreme. We know that. This younger generation is going to be deep in facing issues that we have no idea exactly what they are. We have to teach everyone how to think, not just having them understand what the issues are, but how to think in different ways about solutions. So one of the things that I would challenge all of us to do is think about, as you're hiring people in your businesses, to look at going beyond just the traditional skill set of whatever it is that you need for your business, but really looking at people that you're bringing into your businesses that can help you to think differently, help you prepare for a different future. So bringing in people that have innovative skill sets, that have really good writing and communication skills. That's probably one of the most critical skill sets that I think that we're all going to need. We need to be able to talk about climate and science differently than how we're talking about it. That's obvious just from what's happening politically out there right now. We need to be able to understand how to communicate differently and how to engage people differently. Think about internally in your businesses, how can you start up green teams within your organizations? How can you engage your staff in ways that you haven't engaged them yet around these solutions? Netflix has this great slide deck that they do that talks about how they work with their staff. I encourage you all to look at that slide deck. It's pretty easy to find online. But one of the things they talk about is the value of encouraging employees to take risks in how they think about things. So really, I would challenge all of you that are, all of us are in businesses, but all of you that are running businesses, think about things differently. And for the policymakers out there, don't keep going back to the same traditional solutions to these problems. I loved what Abby did, that Abby brought up a different way of looking at our climate crisis, at the global warming issues. We need to think about things differently so we can address things differently.
Okay, thank you. John?
On the policy side, as we all are aware, we have a governor's race here in November, and it looks pretty strong in the polls that Gavin Newsom's going to be our next new governor in California, so I'm looking forward to that. I've supported Gavin, helped raise over $50,000 for him, and had the opportunity to spend some time with him, with other leaders in regenerative agriculture, about the importance of agriculture in California and how they can be part of that solution. And farmers today, for instance, just growing cover crops, and this is what we're trying to figure out, how do we encourage at the government policy level, when it rains, when they had these huge rains in this last year or two, the water not a drop of water washed off some of these farms that had cover crops. And that's huge implications for water conservation and environmental health and carbon storage. So those are some things we want to, when the new administration comes in, is to encourage them to really focus on. They're going to have a lot of challenges and areas that we got to focus on. But that's one area, agriculture. And the state just recently, the Secretary of Ag, Food and Ag, signed the 4 per 1,000. It's a French Ministry of Agriculture initiative coming out of COP21 that puts a goal for carbon to sequester through agriculture. So, ironically, though, the press didn't cover that at all. But it was an important initiative. So I think the state of California needs to work on that. And ultimately, on the federal level, if we could encourage the Farm Bill to actually have more soil conservation measures, that would be great. There is more this time than there was 5 years ago, but it needs to be a lot more. And farmers are ready to lead on this. They just need some more direction and incentives to put the carbon back in the soil where it belongs, because that's where it came from.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
I would suggest if everybody could create businesses that help the planet locally. So we built an industrial sterilization facility. We're the largest consumer of sterilization in Northern California, and everything was going to Los Angeles to be sterilized. So we partnered with a company to bring them to Sonoma County. So we took, I think, 26,000 gallons of fuel not being consumed, driving semis to Los Angeles off the road. And next year we'll add solar panels to that facility, so it'll be the first solar-powered sterilization facility. I think everybody's got ideas, and I think you have to make your ideas a reality here locally. If you can invest your money locally and make stuff happen locally, you can change our lives. So.
Okay, thank you. Do we have some questions from the floor?
I think I've got one of those voices.
Okay.
But I'm gonna try it. To you, so in terms of yes,
Okay.
I'm
Cyane.
sorry.
Cyane.
Do you use system thinking? Is that what you're really talking about? Thinking differently, using system thinking in terms of solving environmental problems?
I would look at it more as design thinking.
Okay, fine.
So like really thinking about testing things out, failing, taking risks, gaining empathy from whoever your target market is. Yeah.
Could someone hand my micro? Okay.
So when we talk about design thinking, I think we really are talking about design that coexists with nature and uses nature's wisdom to help us design. Janine met Benyus, who we got to spend some time with last Friday. I think as long as we're not designing for the we in our culture that includes all species, then we're not designing well. And we've designed an entire culture that excludes other species. So I think in design thinking, we absolutely have to include the largest population, which is nature herself. And she has a lot of things to offer us in how we design and solutions for our design that coexist.
Okay, thank you. Oh, is this one on? I don't think. Can you hear me? Belle?
Thank you. I'm interested in plastics. Everybody's interested in plastics. And vegetable-based source. Is this something that could be, is this something that's happening nationwide, worldwide? Is there a chance that we're going to be able to resolve the problem of plastic composting? In this manner, are you by yourself, or is this part of something bigger?
So the first, the first part we made, I said was made from corn. My personal big fear is you start developing plastics which take away from food sources. So the guys that invented this invented it at MIT, and they needed a company to partner with to develop the product. They figured out how to make the raw material, but they didn't know how to turn it into something solid. So they would take corn and ferment it once and separate the sugar and the starch, take the starch and use it for animal feed, and take the sugar, re-ferment it, and then they could pelletize it so we could inject it into machines to make this part. Unfortunately, capitalism gets in the way, and I'm not an economist, I'm not a big guy on this subject, but Archer Daniels Midland got involved, purchased the rights to the product, partnered with Rubbermaid, who were going to make laundry baskets, built a giant facility in Iowa, only they powered the facility with coal. So obviously then you have a terrible carbon footprint because the energy you're using, and it was a £1 billion a year facility. We were written up in Business Week for developing this with the MIT guys, and then the whole thing failed economically. Rubbermaid backed out, and they sold it to the Germans. And the Germans, who are way ahead of the rest of the world, tried to put this into play in Germany. They could not make it work because of the thickness of the plastic. It's biodegradable, didn't meet their standards. So they sold it to the Spanish. By the end, we couldn't afford to import it anymore. So this is a global thing that people all over the world are working on, people all over the world care about. So a little company in Sonoma County is not going to change this, but we are certainly participating. If somebody comes to us, we're working with a company right now in Oakland called Mango Materials. They're working on taking methane and turning it into plastic. And we've been prototyping some stuff with them. They bring different materials to our facility, and we try to make this part with it using their materials. So I think it is a global thing. It's not necessarily a Petaluma or a Marin County thing, but I think it's ideas like this and the people in Oakland working on it and the people in Berkeley working on it. It's a global thing we all have to work on. So.
Thank you. And I think, John, you have something?
Yeah, I participate in a group called OSC2 Squared, and it's a network of organic CPG brands here in the Bay Area, from Numi Tea to Nutiva, Ultra Eco, Guayaki, and we have a packaging coalition when really looking at the challenges around compostable packaging and better, green packaging. It's a real issue because we spend all this time to raise our crops, grow the crops, process it, pack it, from an organic production perspective, and then put it into packaging that's non-recyclable. I mean, imagine if you're an organic environmentalist, organic entrepreneur, and you have to do that. So the challenge is some of the performance of the materials don't always meet up to it. They are working on it. We're making progress, but it takes a while. There is one group that's kind of in the R&D mode, and they're essentially setting up like a composting operations, and the off-gassing from the composting, they're converting that into a type of plastic that will go into a variety of materials. It has the potential to be very cost-effective, but they're raising tens of millions of dollars, and there's supposedly going to be a prototype facility in the Bay Area here that's tied in one of the largest tech companies, and so there is some progress being made, but it's a real challenge.
Okay, thank you. Do I have one last question? Oh, okay. If they're short, we can do two, but.
John Bozell with CalSTART. One quick point is, as long as you brought up the governor's race, there's also Proposition 6 on the ballot, which would repeal the gas tax that was approved last year with bipartisan support. That will improve public transit, $700 million a year to go to public transit. So I'd encourage everybody here to vote no on Proposition 6, measure backed by the oil industry. Would like to ask your thoughts about your employees' commute to work and strategies to try to reduce those emissions, because that oftentimes can be bigger than the electricity generation and the emissions associated with that at any facility.
I'll go first on that one, because when we moved to Petaluma, it was because of the cost of housing here in Marin, unfortunately. So our average employee saved 5 miles each way. We were drawing primarily from Sonoma County for our employees. We have 280 employees. So I think that is a very important thing that you bring up as far as transportation goes. How do people get to work? People here brought up the SMART train. The SMART train is great, but it only runs north and south, more or less. It doesn't go east and west. So you have a lot of people driving to get to the SMART train. Parking at the SMART trains become an issue. And getting from the SMART train to your actual place of employment has been an issue. So we're trying to tackle those things as a company. My company runs 24/7, so it's very difficult. The train does not run 24/7. The buses don't run 24/7. So it's a challenge to get people to work in the most environmentally effective way possible.
Right. I think what I'm going to do, instead of going down, would you like to pose your question quickly?
Sure. Mine is a little bit about the designing with nature. And so how do we change development land codes to be focused on ecosystem services, you know, that get more at the triple bottom line and the quadruple bottom line, when current real estate really kind of stops before we get to those points? It does focus on the building, but not the overall land plan. But do you have any ideas on that?
John?
I think it has to start with education. I mean, I like to say that we're creating city planners who don't understand how water flows. We have doctors who are in charge of our healthcare that don't know about the impact of nutrition on our organs. So it's really the hyper specialization, I think, has created the problem. We need this more systems thinking like Bucky Fuller, but that's not how our society, our education, our institutions are designed. So we're kind of designed for not for success, and that's a longer term issue to deal with. But just
Cyane, do you want to make a closing comment?
Not about that necessarily. Education is important. I mean, I also think, to the commute question, I think that really what I think all organizations also need to do is rethink your operations in general. I mean, we spend a lot of our time thinking about the most cost-effective ways of doing business, and so reducing travel time by our employees is one of the factors in that, and that also reduces our carbon footprint. So really constantly be looking at how you operate and run your businesses and rethinking them, and just looking at having your employees be on committees that talk about their commute and that can examine that. So having green teams internally, I think, is a really important aspect of, and having your employees really staff that green team is a really important aspect of doing business.
Okay, well, thank you, all three of you, for joining us. And I believe handing over to Chris. Okay.